There you go.
Great. All right, you want to talk Matthew Toe at 62 points or Dan Hollins at 87 points?
Welcome to the Rugby Rant Podcast Show, your premier North American rugby podcast. Growing rugby, one fan at a time.
And welcome back, rugby fans, to episode 144 of the Rugby Rant Podcast Show. As a reminder, my name is Ty, the Sappho Braga. Joining me as per usual, we've got Rob, the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and Scott, the Big Guy Ferrara. We are the Rugby Rant Podcast Show. And we're going to be back in just a moment to be able to share some news from across the rugby realms and around the pitch.
When we pick up the ball, we also pick up a legacy. A legacy that stretches beyond your current team. A legacy built on the backs of those who came before you with hard work. And for those who will come after you, we promise it won't be easy. But we'll be there, supporting you on and off the field.
All right, gentlemen, you know how it goes, but a quick reminder for those who may be tuning in for the first time, this is where you get your news fast. And of course, we're going to send it once around the screen. Each one of us is going to give what we think fans should learn about, should know about, should hear about, whatever it is. We're going to send it your way. And I'm going to pass the ball first off to Scott, the Big Guy Ferrara.
Hey, everybody. So I'm here to talk about the first off-season trade in the MLR. For the 2023 draft. Again, the 2023 draft is going to be Thursday, August 17th, starting at 6:30 Eastern on FS2. We will be starting our coverage at 6 p.m. Eastern, having some special guests going live through the draft as we have been for the past 4 years now. But let's talk about the trade, the actual trade. So Houston has traded Robbie Povey. We know that name, one, because he's a great player, Canadian player playing out of Houston. But we also remember Robbie Povey because he was actually the first player ever traded for a draft pick before the inaugural draft. Houston receives Toronto's first round pick in the 2023 draft. And this has kind of been a thing with Toronto. Their colleges work a little bit differently. They tend to stick with Canadian players. So usually they're taking their draft picks and they're sending them off either for foreign player spots or bringing guys home like Robbie Povey. So congratulations, Robbie, coming back home to Toronto.
Yeah, and as we draw ever closer to that MLR draft, we'll continue to be able to share what news we learn about. And of course, we'll continue to be able to follow it and share it with you as rugby fans. That'll be August 17th. It will be the MLR draft, and we'll be doing our show in conjunction with that. If you want to get an even deeper insight, as we've been doing for a couple of years, and by we, I mean Rob and Scott, because I've been absent for almost every one. Although the last time I was on a plane to Denver, Colorado for Rugby Town 7. So I had an excuse. This year I actually managed to be able to, it's the week after that. So I'm happy. And you always do such a phenomenal job, Rob, of getting all the guests lined up. And we'll continue to be able to share who we've got lined up. But that also gives me the chance to throw it over to you with what you might have to share.
Thanks, Ty. And yeah, let me drip one of our guests. We've already confirmed Mike Matarazzo, a Chicago Hound, back row player, is going to join us. And the thing about Mike is that he was actually in a draft. He got to experience that on the player end of things. He's been through a trade. Of course, he was, drafted by Dallas, and then he's now with the Hounds. So he's kind of been through the process. He knows what these guys are experiencing, what they're going through, what they're going to go through, and what they're going to experience. Going to a new team, a new city, and then going through the process as a professional. So we're looking to draw from his experience and knowledge. I'm glad to have Mike on the show. He's a wonderful kid, and really knowledgeable and well-spoken. So I can't wait for him to join us. But let me talk about the MLR. We're kind of bookending the season now. And I just want to mention, in case you haven't seen, I'm going to toot my own horn. Jason Potros from the New England Free Jacks is the player of the year. And of course, Ty and I know I did, both in 2 episodes ago, said that he was going to be player of the year. He was our selection as player of the year. And of
Right.
course, that has come to fruition. He's heading over to play with Taranaki. That's where he came from. So it's not unusual for players to kind of play in both leagues. Is also the MLR Championship Player of the Match. Go back to the Rugby Rant podcast. I did a brief interview with him after the MLR Championship, so I got a chance to catch up with him then. 16 matches, 47 conversions, 15 penalties, and 1,000 meters ran over the course of the season. Congratulations to him. One hell of a year for him, especially now 2 years running. The New England Free Jacks had Player of the Year.
Yeah, and this year it paid off with due diligence, of course, giving them the title and an exciting matchup. I'm going to take the opportunity to turn the attention to sevens as we step away from 15s. And this is important because we're going to be diving into the conversation of PR sevens a little bit later on. And while we're on the topic, to be able to help set us up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the HSBC Sevens, which has recently undergone a bit of a revamp. There's been lots of news across all different rugby publications talking about what it might look like. And finally, it has been revealed. A less is more concept has been adopted, I believe. We had a lot of great stops on the HSBC 7 circuits. Some of them were reviewed, and in looking at what they thought would be the best to be able to help grow the game, create a festival atmosphere for travel, tourism, and geographically located in prominent areas that they want to continue growing the brand of sevens, USA and Canada stuck around on that list. So that's a good thing for rugby in North America as a whole. LA will retain its place, and likewise for Canada with Vancouver. But others on that list is Dubai with the UAE, Cape Town, South Africa. You've got Perth, Australia, Los Angeles, I mentioned, Vancouver, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Madrid. You might take note that many of those areas are not your traditional powerhouses in rugby. And that is for good reason, because there's new markets to explore. There's great places to be able to take rugby and show the rest of the world. And sevens is a wonderful format to do so. And that's why, it's no surprise to be able to see America and Canada still on that list. Scott, what else do you have for us?
Well, I'm going a little bit south of the border, as we'll say. And, this is a North American rugby show, but we just want to shout out a little tidbit. The oldest rugby club in the Americas turned 162 on July 19th, 2023. The Montevideo Cricket Club, the MVCC, was the first rugby club in Uruguay, and it was established July 18th, 1861. It's recognized at the Twickenham Museum of Rugby as being the 8th oldest club in the world. The 7 clubs that are older than the Montevideo Cricket Club are all in Ireland, England, and Scotland, which I found interesting. So they're the first one to break the mold, getting out of the UK and Ireland there. So it's cool. It's just a little tidbit. It's one of those things where we love to see where the tradition and the history comes from. So congratulations on turning 162, Montevideo Cricket Club.
That's a really short list of clubs that are even older than 100, right? And then to crack 150 and then to be among the top 10 ever, kudos to them, man. And to keep rugby going and where Uruguayan rugby is now, it's great to be able to see clubs like that get honored and get respected for their contribution, because I'm pretty sure that it's a staple of the rugby community there and in South America. So great shout out. Awesome. 162 years old. Rob, what else do you have to share with us?
Oh man, it's hard to beat that. I mean, Scott came in hot, just like he said. But I'm gonna do my best.
And he delivered.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna do my best and bring it back to sevens, because we are focused on sevens in episode 144 of the Rugby Rant podcast show, and that is last week the North American Invitational Sevens, or NAI Sevens, were played July 22nd, 23rd in Salt Lake City, Utah, not in Harriman. But there were a lot of folks connected with the Utah Warriors that were there. By the way, Brandon Sparks, no longer with the Utah Warriors, but he was there officiating as a part of the sevens experience. It was good to see him staying involved in rugby out in Utah. But this was basically this tournament was created for young athletes to compete with others from around the world creating a safe, well-organized environment and providing an opportunity for those athletes to be looked at by scouts. And there's somewhere between, I think they said 30 and 40 scouts present. I know one of those was a good friend of the show, my guy, David Fee, U18 sevens coach from the United States. He was checking out some talent. He, of course, has taken a team, USA team, down to New Zealand this December. So he was kind of looking at, if he could mine some talent there to take down to New Zealand. But you got age grades from U14 all the way up to U23, both on the boys and the girls. Just want to, touch upon two of the top men's and girls programs. You have the U23 Mustangs, 33 over the San Mateo Wolverines, 19 on the men's side, and the U18 Elite Girls. Rugby Advantage Black, 19 over the Mystics, 14. So, great matches played. Fee called me from field side. There's all kinds of cheering going on. It was a wonderful experience from what I could hear. And in the, again, this kind of talks about that rugby-tainment that we always go back to. They had the Utah Days Rodeo actually going on in conjunction with this event. I think that's a reflection of the fact that when you kind of bring in that tournament atmosphere and that environment of, other things built around the rugby experience, you can really enhance the rugby and enhance the viewing and enhance the eyeballs on the game. So it was great to see. And don't forget, Utah incorporated that rodeo theme into their city jersey too. So, they're really thinking about the big picture, which is good to see.
And I feel in a way that's where sevens rugby has been ahead of the curve for quite a while. Like I know plenty of people that would go for the party and stay for the rugby. Right. And that's something that has been a bit of a tradition when it comes to sevens. And it's no surprise now to be able to see the rest of rugby go, wow, they got something good. If you could package a little bit of that excitement and uncork it in rugby here, fans will come to be able to enjoy it. And you have to be able to offer these secondary and tertiary benefits. So it's great to be able to see that. But good shout out for all of those young athletes, of course, the next generation as well. And I'm going to talk about the next generation here as I dive into the U20s. Now, they've been taking their opportunity overseas to be able to compete in the World Trophy. This is kind of like seen as an emerging nations league. The one above, of course, would include South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and all these countries competing against each other, which recently took place in South Africa. But in Kenya, we have all the other countries assembled. And the USA U20 took on Scotland. This was going to be by far their greatest challenge of the tournament. Unfortunately, they came the lesser and certainly had many lessons to learn. There were 6 tries scored against them from Scotland, leaving a final scoreline of 40-13. Although the USA showed much promise in the early stages, but it's the depth in the squad that certainly shone through, and in the final moments really solidified that they were the better team, was Scotland. It still leaves them in a precarious position. There are many great things to be able to take away from this competition. The best of all is the fact that they've been able to play great competition overseas and continue to be able to grow the players, the sport, and the infrastructure around them, because these U20, these 19, 20-year-olds, hopefully will be the ones taking the field wearing the red, white, and blue come 2031 on U.S. soil. So we have to invest in them now. Make sure that you pay attention to that, because there's going to be a lot of names that you might be able to learn now and watch them grow over the next decade. So, gentlemen, there we have it again, around the pitch. What we know, we share with you as rugby fans. And again, as a reminder, you can continue to be able to get more content from us online or on our social media, or following us through audio podcasts under the handle @Rugby Rant Pod. We'll continue to be able to follow this and more. In particular, if you want to be able to learn about the MLR draftees and hear from our panel of experts, make sure you follow us. We'll continue to share that closer and closer we get to it. But for now, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be coming back talking about PR7s.
Tighthead Brewing Company is not just Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers. It is also a great place to enjoy local acts performing live music every Thursday and Saturday nights. Additionally, their Wednesday night trivia nights are something not to be missed. Tighthead is located in Mundelein, Illinois, and easily accessible for many Chicagoans, as it is just steps away from the metro. Owner Bruce Durr and the Tighthead staff are dedicated to ensure your microbrew experience is as tight as their beers. Bruce's love for rugby extends beyond the origin of his brewery's name. Tighthead is committed to supporting the rugby community. This includes his support for Lake County RFC and our own Rugby Rant podcast show. Tighthead's tap room is like the familiar rugby clubhouse in which friends and teammates can meet, socialize, and enjoy the wide variety of brews on tap. Regardless of whether your palate enjoys a good IPA or a dark barrel-aged brew, Tighthead can deliver. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tighthead Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tighthead, it's worth more than a try.
Welcome back, rugby fans. Again, it's time to be able to talk about PR7s. It has been an exciting expansion season for the Premier Rugby Sevens program, the peak of domestic sevens program here on US soil. And we have got Rob and Scott who are going to be able to share more insight as to two particular things that they think are important for fans to be able to have their attention drawn to. One is, how do we get here as we stand on the eve of the final in being hosted on August 6th, and that'll take place in Washington, D.C. So how do we get here? It was expanded into 5 different legs. It introduced new cities. It introduced new teams. We're going to dive into that and more as we go even further into this topic. But then finally, we're going to ask them to draw their attention towards the final itself and the teams that compete. And we're going to dive into that with the knowledge of knowing that it's going to be men's and women's that are competing, but there's actually going to be 3 titles up for grabs, as those PR7 fans might very well know. The final opportunity not only is it top men's honors and top ladies honors, but is the United Championship title, which is the combined scores and efforts of both men and women to find an overall winner that they crown as the United Champion. So there is a lot to be able to unpack here. It has been an exciting expansion year for PR7s. We on the Rugby Rant were fortunate enough to be able to speak with many of the game players who have helped bring it to fruition at the beginning of the season. They promised us action in new sites across the United States. And let me recap some of those for those fans that are not aware. It first kicked off in Austin, Texas, and that was June 17th. The following week, they took it on the road up to Minneapolis, and that was the first time that they had ever been there, and that was June 24th. Then took a couple of weeks break, and coming back June 15th, the event took place in San Jose. Then most recently in Pittsburgh, where we have had the Heart Steel Toes really taking their debut opportunity to heart and also taking the honors with it. Gentlemen, I have laid the foundation here, and I will hand it to Scott Ferrara to take the first opportunity.
Well, I think, so now this will be my third year going to a PR7s event. I will be in Washington, D.C. And I think this format is what we're looking for. This is the future of PR7s. And I think it worked very well. You stretched it across coast to coast, right? So that's the first thing. You're going West Coast all the way to East Coast. You've expanded to new teams. You brought back some teams. The locals coming back. You had the Retrievers as a new team. You had the Steel Toes as a new team. You kept the format of pay equality for men and women. You kept the format of the United Championship, which means there's something to play for. It's almost like the bonus point system, in my opinion, right? There's always something to play for, especially with the United Championship. If you get a hard go of it in the men's side and your women's side is cruising, those couple wins at the back end of the men's side can get you to that United Championship. It really is a party. And every place so far I've watched it on YouTube has been a party. That's the atmosphere, the festival atmosphere. Ty was talking about with the new upgraded quote unquote HSBC sevens, right? We always saw that in Vegas, that party atmosphere. Last year in DC, it was a great party right up until the Lightning showed up, and then as soon as the Lightning left, people were partying in the rain. You had a whole bunch of different um, sports there. The Nationals were there. I don't remember I can't remember the DC's WAB NBA team was there. They had last year. They had the moving women's rugby museum there, which was friggin' awesome. Rob got to see it at one point, and then I got to see it there. It was great. It was. I think this is where I don't know if they need to expand to more stops next year as much as they need to fine tune what they have now.
Right.
Grow on the ticket sales, do their analytics, what worked, what didn't work, what were the YouTube views like. Last year, they used half of the broadcasts were on Fubo Sports for free, and then it would go to Fox Sports 2. Going to YouTube, now you have access to control your own content completely in your own production. A little bit easier to navigate for most of the people online.
Right. And it also becomes an international product because everybody
Exactly.
can tune into YouTube.
Except if you're in China. So it's one of those things where I think this is the next step isn't a huge step like they had this year. It's incremental steps to fine tune what they have better. But the real reason I'm going to get hot right now is the fucking steel toes are stealing my fucking ideas. So I've been wearing a hard hat all goddamn season with Rugby New York Ironworkers. Shout out to my hard hats in Section 6. And all of a sudden, these newbies, these band jumping bandwagon fans show up to Pittsburgh with a friggin' hard hat that says steel toes. Cut to zero.
Copyright that shit, though.
Rob's,
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, Rob's brother is a lawyer, so I'm checking out Hammerschmidt Esquire to start sending my papers as my trademark has already been signed.
Be careful because he's a Steelers fan, so he might not.
But that's the perfect. You can talk to those people and explain to them why they're a thief.
Right. I just what I feel like we should do now is make like a smear campaign, and we're going to change their logo to like as Scott said, they stole it. They steal it, so we're gonna make it STEAL and like the steel toes. They stole it from him. We can post that shit everywhere. And we're gonna make sure we get that the steel toes. Can you visualize
that's
it?
Strong.
Oh, that's my new campaign now. How you create a monster brother? But no, go back to the topic. That's lighthearted. Yes, I think this is the way forward. I think it has been successful. I'm anticipating a successful final in the next 2 weeks. Come see the big guy. I'll be on the field. I'll be in the stadium. If you're around that area, good place to eat, by the way. Jimmy T's. It's a little diner, cash only joint up in Georgetown. Fucking phenomenal. Been going there prior to me going to DC for rugby. So check out the big guy at Jimmy T's a couple mornings in a row, and then I'll be off to Audi Field.
Nice. So let's unpack a little bit of that, right? So festival atmosphere, great reason to be able to go, awesome reason to be able to stay, to be able to enjoy all the entertainment, all the activities, everything that they got going on. And why you brought that up is that you thought they did a wonderful job, but they don't necessarily need to do more. We just need to get more people there. We need to be able to grow the awareness, the reach, and of course, the views. And everything will come, right? If you have enough eyeballs, and we talk about it with rugby in general, it doesn't matter which version of it is, but the more people you have attracted to being able to watch it, the more people will come to love it. Every rugby fan here in America or wherever they may be knows at least one person that they helped introduce to the game. And they go, I didn't even know how much fun this was. That's what we want for an entire nation, right? And PR7s is helping to be able to do that through some of these mechanics. And they really do take it that extra step further. And right now, they've done a phenomenal job of taking sevens across the nation and helping elevate that version of the sport that we all love phenomenally well. Rob, I hand it back to you now. What else do you have to be able to share when it comes to PR7s and this season?
I've got a lot. First of all, I'd like to touch upon something that Scott mentioned, and that is it's always a hallmark of a good organization when they review what worked and what didn't work. And Scott mentioned this, right?
Sure.
They review what worked and didn't work, and then they really evaluate what do they need to change. And again, it goes back to the point that I think was made, which is they don't need to change that much. Do they really need to add another team or two? Probably not. Do they need to add more venues? Probably not. I think for right now they stick with what's working.
Mhm.
And I think the value in the number of venues having an east and a west is a couple fold. Number one, your festival doesn't carry on a whole weekend, so it occupies a good portion of the day, but not so much though that you can't have the other entertainment around it. I think we saw from the MLR final that if you have, you can have a good day as a rugby, but you can also have that entertainment that bookends it, that really brings people there.
Right.
And for a family, you don't have, um, rugby, not committed rugby fans like us, but you have kind of tertiary rugby fans that will go and say, I had a great time, but it didn't overcook me. Right. And I
Yeah.
think that's a
That's a
big
fair
value.
point.
The other thing is by having, two events in the East, two events in the West, it allows people who are huge rugby fans that want to see both events. It's not terribly expensive. Like, okay, I got to fly to DC, I got to fly to Austin, then I can go to my home venue in San Jose. You can go to those two East or West events. And then if you want to go to the final, you can. So it makes it a little bit more manageable. One of the
Mhm.
things I'd like to see them do is, and they did it a little bit this year, like, for example, the Loonies were, everything went regional this year, right? The
Right.
franchises were more regional. I think we saw that with the Rhinos last year. We're now, sponsoring the Loggerheads, but we're seeing it even more. For example, the Loonies had Noah Brown, who's a Midwest guy. Of course, that's kind of the Midwest team, and Jack Hidalgo, which is a Chicago guy, and that's kind of that Midwest team. So that's kind of good to see. I was a little disappointed, like a guy like Will Chevalier didn't get in there. I'd like to see that enhanced a little bit more, so that, a guy from the Midwest is going to say, hey, I've been following, Jackson, I've been following Noah, and I've been following Will and some of those guys, and they're on my team. They're guys that I know, they're guys that I've watched, and girls too, for that matter. So, they can enhance that and tweak that a little bit. That I think would make it something more followable by fans. I think there's some things they've got really right. They could just, tweak them a bit and make them a little bit better. Here's one big thing that I think I wanted to touch upon. I was a little dubious. I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I was a little bit critical and a little bit dubious of having 5 weekends. If I recall
Mhm.
that, talking about the news of all the changes they were making, I was like, boy, can the American rugby public really sustain all that rugby
Right. And it
activity?
was right in the middle of an
Right,
MRR final, and there was
right.
a whole bunch of things going on.
I was dubious, but I think they got it right. I think the only real conflict was with the first weekend, which also was I think week 18 of the MLR season. There were a
Mhm.
couple guys. I know Depper Schmidt from the NOLA Gold, as well as Jenkins, had to miss that weekend because they were in Toronto. That again, they might want to tweak the schedule, but I think that um, the schedule allowed for some flexibility too, because what's going unsaid is the fact that, did we notice Isaiah Cruze, Lorenzo Villiani, who were both playing for, I think, I forgot what sevens team they were playing for. I'd have to go back, maybe the Loggerheads, but they were actually able to play in the Collegiate Rugby Shield a week ago, or week 2 weeks ago, and then they played PR7s the following weekend. So they got an opportunity to play in both and manage that. Same holds true for some of those Club Sevens guys. And
Right.
specifically, I'll talk about Nick Feeks, Michael Basco, were both playing for the Bombers, and they were playing with the headliners. They were able to make their 2 qualifiers for
The
the Bombers.
locals. They were playing for the goddamn local. Put them on the right team, Rob. Put them on the right team.
Are you talking about Basco and Feeks?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they were for the locals. I was
They're saying
talking
at
about
club level, they were
I was
also
talking
playing for
about
the
No,
Bombers.
Villani
no, yeah.
and
You
Cruze.
said they were playing for the headliners.
No. I was talking about Cruze and Villani. You have to check and see who they played for.
Dude,
Maybe they got it
We
run
right.
back the
digress.
tape,
That's what I was
everybody. Run back the
No. Feeks and
We get the TMO out.
I know Feeks and Basco were playing with the locals, because Feeks was kind of representing New York a little bit, because he was up there in the last, obviously with the MLR. With anyway, You're breaking my fucking concentration, goddammit. Nevertheless, they were playing with the Bombers. They were able to get their 2 qualifiers in, play for the Bombers in the club side, and they were also able to compete in the PR7. Same with Evan Conlon, who had been competing with the Dallas Reds and who was also playing in PR7s as well. So with the team, by the way. So, I think there was flexibility in that guys were able to play in both, club
Yeah,
side.
and to your earlier
sevens,
point,
and
that's because they weren't weekend-long events, that they had that flexibility. So, yeah, I mean, smart planning or
because you were playing, several weekends in a row like you had been in the past, where it was 3 weekends in a row. Now it's kind of broken up with a little bit with an East and a West. Right.
And even sevens tournaments at the highest level are also thinking about that. At one stage they were testing an HSB circuit. They were doing ladies on the Thursday, and then it was combined on Friday and Saturday, and then men would end it out on Saturday and Sunday. That's too much for even the biggest cities to be able to keep an audience engaged and keep numbers high. Sometimes less is more. And in this case, I think that they nailed the right balance. You don't want to go too much and overextend yourselves, ask too much from your audience or your general fans, and you don't want to do too little that they walk away disappointed. So it is a really tough balance to be able to strike. But the sentiments have all been pretty good from fanfare, entertainment value, product on the field. Their marketing has been spot on. They've been engaged.
The social media has been really strong.
They've gotten a lot of great people who are rugby-loving fans to be engaged and create content, in addition to the players themselves providing content. They've embraced so many different things. So they really have something good. And then initially people think, well, if you've got something good, how do we make it better? And I'm not really sure that's where they need to go next season. I think that they, as you guys rightly pointed out, bigger doesn't always mean better, right? What it means now is be consistent, provide an even better rugby product, make sure that you work out the little kinks in the calendar, continue to provide top quality entertainment, and fans will come to be able to know it for that experience. But on a greater, higher level view, PR7s being a success is a great thing for USA Rugby Sevens programs, because what do we all complain about? That USA Rugby players don't have enough competition. And here you've got an entire season laid out for you at a pro level for both men and women, providing equal platform to be able to apply their trade. And we can find the next generation of Rugby Sevens superstars and future Olympian athletes too.
Hey, here's a question for both of you. Give me a up or down. Does PR7s add a team in the East and the team in the West next year to make it a 5-team competition in each conference?
I'll let Scott take this one first.
I don't think so. I think though the next step would be in 2 years. You add a Eastern Conference Canadian team and a Western Conference Canadian team, and have one of the legs in Canada.
That's
an interesting take.
Strong suggestion.
Yeah,
I like it.
Owen Scannell, remember this.
Don't be the steel toes, right? Don't take it from me.
Exactly.
Or if you do,
the big guy.
Just tag him at least. I mean, look, like fans always enjoy the idea of adding more teams. I like it for a couple of different reasons. I think that it creates a larger player pool, which is also important for domestic rugby. And hopefully it does reach new markets as well. But I don't think next year would be the time to do that. Expansion is important because it is one of the goals for any professional rugby organization. It's for any business, right? You need to be able to expand and find new markets. I would rather see them filling every stadium and having a fully professional side and being fielded every time, and then ask for a new team. And that you could extend to Major League Rugby for next season as well, or the season afterwards. People just want to be able to see new teams because they just want rugby to come to their town. Yeah. So, gentlemen, we need to turn our attention to the final now. August 6th, as a reminder for fans, Washington, D.C. is the venue. It is going to be the 5th stop in this season for PR7s. It leaves the women and men having 4 teams competing in a semi to be able to obviously have the opportunity to progress to the final. Those teams would include, let me go ahead and remind myself, it is the headliners and the locals, and then the loonies and the experts competing against each other on the women's side. Then on the men's side, we have the experts taking on the loggerheads and the steel toes taking on the Texas team. Gentlemen, what thoughts do we have about this final weekend of the teams involved? Rob, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's been some consistency on the women's side to perhaps make the predictions a little bit easier. The loonies have been really, really strong. Making the final from the West on and both legs in the West, losing, winning one, losing the other, both by narrow margins. And then the headliners have been on the Eastern Conference, have been really strong, winning both legs. So, the headliners are going to get, my nod, um, on the women's side. Again, I think there's been some consistency there in the women. The men's, on the other hand, has been a real crapshoot to an extent, especially in the East. You've seen it kind of like round one. There was, teams were just beating each other in the round robin process, if you will, and so it's been real hard to predict. In the end of the day, I'm going to go with the experts. I'm going to go with the experts for the men's side of things, and my United champion is going to be the experts.
Interesting, because right now,
men's and women's on both sides, so they have to be the odds-on.
Yeah, and on that United championship point that you brought up, right now going into this final leg, the headliners and the experts are tied overall for championship points at 44 apiece. So, no wonder you see those two being standouts. It's going to come down to the end. That's what great finals should do. A final leg should be unpredictable. It should be head to head. It should be all the excitement that comes with the anticipation of who's going to take it. But what I love again about this is that not only are you doing that for the men's and the women's, but collectively their contribution as well, which is another addition that is unique, I think, to PR7s, is to have those 3 titles being up for grabs. Scott, what else do you have to share?
Well, I mean, just talking about the women's sides, Rob mentioned the Loonies. The Loonies women is outstanding roster. Obviously, Lev Kelter has been on that roster since day one with the Loonies. But you also have Temi Ugunjimi, who has been killing it this tournament. It's really tough to really. I think as much as the Loonies have been kind of really killing it on the women's side, and the headliners have been killing it. It's one of those things like what I think when you're coming to DC, what's the lineup going to look like? It's changed dramatically, from week to week based on attrition. Unfortunately, our girl Abby was forced out of the steel toe lineup, the women's steel toe lineup with an injury coming into this home town tournament last week. It was unfortunate. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see my girls and the locals kind of break out a little bit. And the reason I'm saying that is that out of all the teams, they've kind of had the less time to practice. They have a bunch of internationals, like Stacey Waka and stuff like that, Nina Wilson. So their practice time was very limited together. So I think now they're going to start to gel. They started to gel this past weekend, and I think they're going to kind of bring that through. Nene Weathers in there, just really killing it right now as well. So I'm going to go hometown boy. I'm going to say the locals take the women's title. I think they're going to shock the world here. The men's, like Rob said, it's up for grabs. That Pittsburgh steel toe men's, those thieves. They have a really good lineup. Our buddy Aki Raymond, who I interviewed last year, he's a good dude on that team. Campbell Johnstone, Ben Pinkelman, obviously one of the bigger names there on that team.
Right, actually player of the Pittsburgh tournament too.
Yeah,
exactly. So my question is, did they kind of use up all their juice in their hometown tournament, and will they come in flat? When you look at the team, like the headliners with Ross Depperschmidt and Tommy Clark, Will Chevalier, as Don Bailey, Sam Walsh. Funny enough, taking the 99 number, as we know, you could take whatever number you want, but that was really a Jazz Gray thing last year, coming out with the great 199. So It's interesting to see somebody else take that 99 jersey. But again, what do we loggerheads, right? Let's go through their lineup. Our buddy Patrick Madden, Jack Rampton, Derek Adams. It's like, again, another team that's just killing it. I don't. It's the men. The men's a real tough one. Like the men is absolutely tough, because especially the Loonies, right? The Loonies men's side, Dan Norton. Like, how do you count him out? Like, dude's a one
This
man
is the
step.
exciting thing
Well,
about
Madison Hughes with the
final,
experts
right?
has been in Fuego as well.
Yeah, well, look at Madison Hughes playing, some of the best rugby he's played in a while, because he's not on the international circuit.
Right.
Unfortunately, the later part of his career, he had injury issues, and I think now that he can actually take care of himself, he's a better player for it. I got to be honest. I think I'm going to go Loggerheads winning the men. I have faith in Patrick Madden and his squad. He's led that squad since the Loggerheads were a team. In the first year, unfortunately, they lost in penalty kicks, and Patrick Madden unfortunately missed a kick after he was injured. And the next kick, I believe, for the experts, right? What was Fee's team? Right? Is the experts?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Marty Isofa, I believe, slotted the game winner after Patrick unfortunately took a kick injured. But I'm gonna say Loggerheads take the whole thing for the men's, and United. That's another one. It's kind of up for grabs. It depends on who shows up.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Right now, I think the Loggerheads are sitting about 8 or 10 points away from position 1 and 2, which is of course shared at 44 points. So, it'll be interesting to be able to see. Obviously, I don't know if there's actually, I actually don't know if there's more points weighted to winning the
no,
final.
I think it's, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's the same amount of points. So they even if they win 2, and they'd have to have a bunch of people, men's and women's team lose, which is possible. Yeah. It could happen, but it's it's a slight chance. But this is why I like having this United Championship, because again, like I was mentioning before, at any point anybody could win one of those. So I got to be honest. I think the Loonies take that away, because they're going to statistically be playing the most matches.
So recap from Scott Ferrara. It looks like on the women's side, you're going to be backing the locals, and then on the men's, the Loggerheads.
Yes.
Rob, you were backing the headliners for the ladies, going with, how their form has been consistent throughout. You're hoping to be able to see more of the same as they get the job done in the final weekend. And on the men's side, remind me again, was it the Loonies? Or no, it was the Experts, was it?
Mm-hmm.
The Experts. So, yeah, all good picks, obviously.
Experts overall.
Overall, yeah, absolutely as well. So we'll have to be able to come back to this, put a pin in it, and remind ourselves.
I've got it written down.
You do. Good stuff, because we would forget this 10 minutes after the show.
I know I will. That's why I wrote it down.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to remind folks again that if you wanted to take the opportunity to view this exciting rugby, as we recommend that you certainly do so, you can catch it now on their YouTube channel, absolutely free, of course, as anything else would be on YouTube, and it's easy to access, and you're going to get the beginning half of the entertainment. But if you really want to get the best quality broadcast value, you're going to switch over to FS1 to be able to catch the finals for both the men's and women's. That's going to be the top product, the best rugby athletes of the entire series competing for top honors, not only for their team, but of course for themselves as well, to be able to take away a championship and the honors that go with it. Scott Ferrara will be field side. We hope to be able to see him there, catch as much as he can, as he has done so in the past for us, and will do so again. If you happen to be able to see him, please make sure that you get as many photos. It's like watching and catching an image of Bigfoot. We enjoy being able to see it out in the wild, but we don't believe it. But Scott, what else did you want to be able to share? I know you like to be able to encourage fans to be able to grab you when you are at the venue.
Absolutely. Grab me, take a picture with me, say hello, bullshit a little bit with me. That's what it's all about. I think me and Rob can attest when we travel to rugby events. The best part about it is somebody just saying, "Hey, big guy, I love the show," and at least giving me a high five. If you're going to feed me, just watch your hands. Don't want to lose a finger.
Fair stuff. I like it. And you can continue to be able to grab more of our content online by following us under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod on all the social media platforms that you may choose to use, in addition to finding our audio podcasts available on any of the major platforms as well. Also under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod, where we continue to be able to grow rugby one fan at a time. And we do that with your help and the help of some great partners along the way. So tell us how you think we do. Continue to be able to share your comments, and we continue to be able to invite you to also join us here on the show, because maybe you want to be able to take on Rob or Scott or even myself, and we welcome the challenge. In fact, it keeps us on our toes. So if you think you got what it takes, tag us and say, I'm in, and we'll put you to the test in a future rant. Gentlemen, again, another great episode. We wish everybody the opportunity to be able to tune into PR7s, but where it is right now is an exciting product, and we're only even more excited as the years go by to see where it may go as the seasons continue. Thank you very much. And on behalf of Scott, the big guy for Rob, the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and of course myself, Ty, the Sappho Braga, you've been watching episode 144 of the Rugby Rant podcast show, and we will see you at the next.